What is going on, everybody? Voidlego here, back for a brand new episode of Higurashi When They Cry. Last time we were on, as Kechi, we scouted out for the perfect murder of Sadako's uncle. And well, I think we're about to put that plan into motion. Let's look at the new tension of those in the housewife's water incident case. Alright. July 1982. Okayama Police Station, 1st Investigative Division. Chief Takasugi, Prefecture Police Headquarters for the Eradication of Drug-Related Crime. Shishiborn Branch Head. Regarding incident designated as Undercover Investigation, this message is to inform you that a selection of the testimony records of an incident under this police headquarters jurisdiction has been found. It is thought to be related to the undercover investigation of the incident in question, Okayama Police Station, Himazawa, Village Housewife's Water Incident. Undercover. During investigation of suspect, who was arrested for possession of illegal drugs, there was testimony alluding to the crime in question, and it became clear that it contained information that only the perpetrator could have known. Therefore, we are prepared to share this record of testimony with you, duplicate attached. If this testimonial is to be believed, then there is an extremely high chance that suspect was the perpetrator in the incident in question. In addition, on receiving this testimony, the head investigator in the case inquired as to the incident with the Okayama Police Station. But the responsible party at Okayama Police Station must understood, and in compliance with the designation as an undercover investigation by executive order from Prefecture Police Headquarters on July 1st, 1982, General Administration P-112. They did not explain the incident's existence to the head investigator as they should have. Because of this, the head investigator did not realize the importance of the testimony as it related to the case in question, and as a result was negligent when combing the scene. We apologize for having effectively ignored it until now. In addition, there's a postscript stating that suspect died while in confinement yesterday and what? Wait, huh? Wait, they messed up the investigation of going through the scene? And the suspect they already arrested for the murder of the housewife is dead. He was found dead in his confinement. Oh boy. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? What the hell? What does that mean? Sunday. The fireworks I heard before noon were probably to announce the opening of the festival. And the weather certainly wasn't festival weather. It was cloudy. The television forecast was calling for possible downpours starting this evening and lasting until around midnight. But as long as it wasn't raining at the moment, the festival would go on. The festival had to open, or it wouldn't begin. The food shrine grounds were probably decorated beautifully for the big performance that only happened once a year. Many paper lanterns were hung up, all in the auspicious colors of red and white. The sound of electric mortars at the stalls, the voices of kids running around, their happy families watching them, smiling. Today was the festival of Higurashi. Was everyone already partaking in the festivities? What about Sadako? Had she forgotten her days of suffering just for a few moments, while smiling that glowing smile she hadn't in so long? This would probably be the longest day of my life. It would be a day I remember vividly for as long as I lived. I told my parents I'd go to the festival this evening and lounged about during the early afternoon. We may have lived under the same roof, but they couldn't help being surprised by the deviation from how I usually spent my time. Glancing at my parents out of the corner of my eye, I went to the front door. I tied my shoes just a little tighter than normal, as if to express the firmness of my resolve in those knots. When I decided to murder Sadako's uncle, I was in such a state of excitement, I almost went crazy. and when I was planning out the act of a murder, which went directly against all the morals fostered in me thus far, I was in such a state of calm, I almost thought I'd lost my emotions. And then yesterday, when I learned Satoshi had made exactly the same phone call as me, I didn't know how to describe the muddled feelings I had then. And now entering today, right now I lacked all the emotions I possessed until now. To make a simple analogy, it was the kind of feeling you might get right after you wake up, when you're still half asleep and you don't feel anything very clearly. I had no anger towards that man for the violence he committed against Sadako, nor did I feel sadness towards or sympathize with her. I felt no discontent towards my friends who had just waited and watched, never reaching out to her with any help, and no nervousness or fear towards a day that had finally come. Yes, right now you could say I was in the best possible condition for carrying out a murder. When it came down to it, I would probably need to let my violent emotions take control. But right up until that moment, I would be like an insect. I would slowly, surely, and silently move towards my one objective, and then when I had my prey, I attack like a bullet. There was no emotion in that, just the creeping mindset insects possessed. That sort of sneaking feeling was just the best. I would kill Sadako's uncle like he was a worm. I had to laugh a little at thinking that way, thinking like an insect. Tug. I tightened my braces one more time and walked out the door. I brought the shovel out of the front storeroom. I would need it to dig the man's grave. The shovel is a convenient one made for camping. If I twisted it like so and split it into three, I could easily hide it in my bag. I twisted the shovel and dismantled it. And even though I'd done it countless times before, I had trouble for some reason. Like it was suddenly clumsy now. I knew why. It wasn't because I was nervous. My weak-willed self deep within me was hesitant. I knew that the act of dismantling the shovel was the first step I'd take to becoming a murderer. The last twist was conspicuously difficult, but it finally submitted before the strength of my determination. The area around Sadako's house was outside my circle of activity, but even just riding my bike in the middle of the day like this might seem suspicious to an observant person. I definitely want to avoid meeting and talking to someone I knew. With that in mind, I chose the route to my destination carefully. I didn't mind going the long way around. With how long this day would be, I could never be too careful after all. Still, I was fortunate enough not to run across anybody on my way to the planned site of the crime. I wasn't superstitious at this point, but it was a good omen. The place I would dig the hole was in this grove, a little further into the woods. I was worried I might not make it to the same place as before, since there were no signs to guide me, but I arrived there smoothly and as I expected. I took another look around. Not even a hint of human presence. The air was a little bit damp, but it was comfortable in the cool shade of the trees. I took the disassembled shovel out of my bag and began skillfully putting it together. Then I stuck the tip of the shovel into a soft-looking patch of ground and pushed on it with my foot. The shovel would split into the air if I put some strength into that foot. The act of doing so seemed awfully like the point of no return, and it made me hesitate. I was just digging a hole with a shovel, but it made me gulp hard. Calm down, Ketchimarabara. Let's do a countdown. Get it down on the count of 3, okay? Alright. 1, 2. I couldn't do it on the countdown, despite it just being sticking the shovel into the ground, and I had to count down 5 or 6 times. Damn it. Just digging a hole, this is pathetic. As I thought that, I put strength into my heel like I was stepping on something unprecedented. Split came the sharp noise. It was always soft at the beginning, Roots and stones quickly got in the way, informing me just how hard it was to dig a hole big enough for a person. No decent person would ever come here anyway. Maybe it would be enough to cover him up with some dirt. Every time a naive thought like that crept into my mind, I bit down on it with my teeth and dug even harder. I've dug enough now. It could hide him like this. Every time I thought that, I would go down into the hole, grow disappointed at how shallow it was, and return to digging. The thin layer of sweat on my brow eventually formed into drops and fell to the ground. My back was in even worse shape. My damp shirt adhered to my skin and felt so disgusting. The things I couldn't stand the most were the mosquitoes. Maybe they were attracted by the scent of my sweat. The white and black striped mosquitoes would cling to me whenever I let my guard down. It was hot. It was disgusting. I was sticky. I was itchy. All those uncomfortable feelings surged through me in waves. I didn't yell at anyone. It was me talking to myself, me telling myself something. Why was I feeling this way, digging a hole all the way out here? What benefit would digging this hole give me? What harm would there be in not digging this hole at all? Wait, in the first place, who ordered me to dig? When I thought it over, maybe, ever since grade school, or even before that, my whole life had only been me doing what other people told me to. I didn't mean it was somehow constrained, living a life just based on the commands of others. And I didn't mean I was too lazy to try and find my own road in life. Metaphorically speaking, yes, it was like a road. I'd never been particularly physically fit. I didn't hit puberty very early, and if all my classmates and I got on a line, I'd usually be on the shorter end. My soars and jump rope competitions and marathons were the very picture of average. And it wasn't like the captains of the dodgeball teams would have a passionate rock-paper-scissors contest to see which would get me. During those kindergarten grade school years, it felt like someone was only worth how fast they grew and how fit they were. Looking back on it now, it was really uncomfortable for me. The thing that turned all that around was just a few words from my mother.
Keiichi? あなた、塾に入る気はない？学校の勉強がわかるようになって楽しくなるわよ。
The very first test I took at cram school was kind of like a game. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't like the tests with the same exact problems dozens of times in a row. Every question had a picture to it, almost like one of those puzzle books that came with manga magazines. If my studies at school had been like this, it would have been way more fun. Several days later, I went to the cram school again with my mother and the enrollment paperwork. Mom and the person at the cram school had a really long, heated discussion, so I accidentally dozed off and missed most of what they said, but I clearly remember one point. Mom had made a loud groan, surprised at something.
61って平均点が61点ですか？
いえ、違いますよ、お母さん。全国展開する当塾での平均偏差値が61です。簡易式の知能検査でも非凡な数字が出ています。まず申し上げて、前原圭一君は大変に頭がいい。
圭一が？でも学校では大した成績じゃありませんし、通信簿も2、3、4が適当に並ぶ平均的なもので、何かの間違いではありませんか？
いくつかの知能テストとも重ねましたが、その結果興味深いことが分かりました。前原君は意味を持たない問題に非常に弱いのです。無味乾燥で自身の生活に結びつかない内容の問題に興味が持てないのです。
2+3 は分からなくても、リンゴが2個あって3個増やしたら何個にという形なら理解できるということ。
その通りです。例えば正六面体の展開図を書けと言われて混乱する圭一君も、サイコロを切り開いたらどんな形になるというふうに聞けば 見事に答えられるのです。
Huh. Then the person from the crime school showed her a page from one of the exams I took. It was a paper of questions about construction. Construction questions were unusual, so they were really cool, weren't they?
正二十面体の展開図を書けという問題です。この問題を二十面体のサイコロを作るにはどんな風に厚紙を切ればいいと聞き直したら、圭一君はさも簡単そうにこれを書いてみせました。これは平凡なことではありません。
So, Kechi's way more practical than... He understands more practical things than abstractions.
ケイチ、
It's interesting.
あなたどこかの本の雑誌の付録か何かで二十面体のサイコロを作ったことがあったの？
Dice only went from 1 to 6. I never even considered before this test that there were dice with more than 6 sides. So it was fun to imagine what kind of shape a die that went up to 20 would have. Well, if you play D&D, you would know. If I had a die like that, I could win at Snakes and Ladders against anyone. So I immediately wanted to make it. Finally, I entered cram school. There were only 4 students in the class they put me in, which was called Select. It was the highest class, and some of my classmates were in lower classes. And when I remember how much better they had done at things like dodgeball and the 50-meter sprint, I felt happiness well up within me for the first time. Even if I wasn't as good at them physically, I triumphed over them in other ways. It was fun at first. The more I did, the more I was praised. My teachers at school suddenly started pampering me, and it felt good. My parents were satisfied too, and I enjoyed seeing them satisfied. The more I listened to my parents' commands, the more fun things got. That did happen, didn't it? I grinned dryly in self-deprecation. Because, well, my studious lifestyle didn't end up lasting very long. It was only at the beginning I enjoyed learning more and more. I gradually got along less with my friends. My classes were behind what I was learning in cram school. I eventually stopped respecting the teachers, given that they could put me to sleep with their lectures. And well, I was the disagreeable sort who bragged a lot about how much I knew, and the ways of the world wouldn't let me remain in that state of ecstasy forever. I would do as I was told, then I go above and beyond their expectations, and then they praised me. I was happy for that, and the cycle repeated itself like the wheels on a bike. I thought moving forward like that was how life worked, like a bicycle. When I moved to Himizawa, I realized just how inadequate it was. Some things happened, and we started saying how moving and getting a change in atmosphere would be nice. And then my father, he had a place that he liked, that he had gone to a few times to draw the nature. He started saying that he wanted to bring his atelier there. With me in blank amazement, they decided to move to Himizawa. And after that, I met them, didn't I? The first day after transferring here, I went to the classroom with the teacher. I thought it would seem pitiful for her to bring me in there, so I placed my hand on the door before she could, slammed it open, and set foot into the room. Clatter. The thrilling, powerful way I opened that door was none other than my own determination to try doing my life over again. And then, within seconds, that determination took a hard counter to the face. A blackboard eraser fell on me. Plus, there was a huge rock inside. It was a supremely painful trap someone had set up. Oh, come on. Sadako was already beating me right from the first day I transferred. That frightened me. I was bewildered. The class was surprised too. I wasn't just surprised that the students in class were all in different grades and were different genders. It was because the room felt completely different from the schools I knew. And as I spent more time with them, my surprise continued to grow. This fresh sense of surprise had never left my life, even to this day. Every day was a fresh new surprise. I've never had a single boring day since coming here. The days were lively spent with the other club members. We played old maid with cards with scratches on the back to cheat. We let all our passions go wild during our games. We went all out as regular participants in tournaments at the toy store in town and many, many more things. Recently, during those times, there were the bento competition. That's when I saw an unexpected side of Sadako. Thinking back on it, I only ate dinner with her 2 nights. It was such sweet, gentle time spent, and it warmed my heart remembering it even now. I realized that Sadako was pretending to be stubborn and firm, and how brave she was, part of her heart always waiting for her Nini to come home. And I vowed to become her Nini. Sadako may have been nagging and overly critical, but she knew how to take care of someone. But though it might have seemed like she was taking the lead, it was actually her way of depending upon another person. Even Satoshi and Sadako's wives as siblings were confined by their uncle and his wife. They were still warm, sunny days. When did those sunny days all go wrong? What mistake was made? Lamenting tragedies of the past would do no good, and I told myself that so many times, but I did anyway. Kechi, isn't that why you chose your own path? To take back that life? Nobody ordered you to do this. You decided it on your own. You don't desire anyone's praise for this. You fought it all through yourself. You carved it out yourself. And you'll do it now. This wasn't a path I could see very far down, not like the roads parents or society could offer. It was a narrow path, dark and utterly distressing, one for which the next step would always be shrouded in darkness. But the disheartening path would keep on going forever. It was an unlimited path, and there was nowhere I couldn't travel. The kind of path only available to those able to imagine where they wanted to go. Don't be ashamed at breaking from the widely lit, paved road. In fact, feel proud that you found your very own path to walk. And I hadn't discarded the paved road either. Once I achieved my goal, I would go back to that white road, and then I'd spend those average sunny days at my leisure. Crush. When I next realized it, the hole had grown so deep I couldn't believe it. Did I dig all this myself?
これだけ掘れば十分じゃないか。
I put my shovel into the bottom of the hole. I would drag the body here, throw it into the hole, and cover it up with dirt. Alright. Let's commentate let me commentate of like what just happened. What that's supposed to mean. So I think what's it saying here with Kechi is that before he was a bright kid. He was a bright kid. But because he excelled so much, and at first he loved that place, he truly did. But eventually it got boring, got repetitive, doing the same thing over and over. And when he eventually got to Himizawa, he finally felt like he was alive. That every day was a new surprise, that every day was a new adventure. And I can kind of relate to that a little bit, because when I was in school, I excelled all my like classes, you know, A's and grades and all that, but I you know, I liked it, you know, I was able to do all that, but eventually it did get boring. I'm not trying to sound like edgy or anything, but school did eventually get boring. Maybe that's just me, because I just did my work, got the A, and just kept on going with life, you know? You know, what made those days in school better was coming home and going on the internet, going on Discord and whatever. And because of Discord, you know, each day was a new adventure, a new surprise, even though stuff like that. I could keep going to that, but you guys probably don't want to hear about that type of shit. But I will wait a lot to catch you in this instance, you know. Plus, going on a different path, you know, that's unexpected of society. I'm not admitting to like being a murderer or anything, but like, you know, doing like YouTube and shit, you know, making videos and all that. I can kind of get that of walking down a dark road, which each step you don't know what's going to happen next, but like, in order to have those happy days, sometimes you do have to go down a dark road where each step could be a pit, you know. It's interesting. That's what that meant to me, at least. That's what I thought of it. So I can kind of get it. Even if it took me time to camouflage it by putting plants on top, it would all go much more easy than digging the hole had. I glanced at my watch. It was almost evening, and I hadn't realized it. I may not have felt the time passing, but digging a hole this deep must have taken quite a long time. I took a seat on the slanted walk nearby and wiped the sweat from my brow. Now, once it got a little darker, I'd go get the metal bat I hid in the schoolyard. Then I make the call to lure him out. And then I'd do it. The number of things I needed to do to reach that moment were dwindling. I felt that moment closing in on me much more keenly than I did the passage of time. I didn't have any hesitation, but I still felt that a contradiction. At every step in this process, I had a few chances to hesitate, to turn back, to let myself lose my nerve. Having to endure those million temptations and wait for when the time was right was an indescribably slow and painful torture. I had fought myself acting all weak because of that, but I stopped midway through. This was okay. It was fine. I could detest the abnormal act of homicide as much as I wanted, and it didn't matter. I wasn't going to be a cut-throat killer after today. I would pass through this strange day and go back to the world I was in before. If I fell to the level of a psychopath who thought nothing of killing, I wouldn't be able to go back to my old life. So this was fine with me. I didn't have to feel ashamed or hesitating to kill, because I was human. It was so funny to me that I be the bearer of Oshiro-sama's curse at the same time I was aware I was human. I exhaled lightly and stood. I concealed my presence and sharpened my senses in all directions to search for anyone around but me. Okay, let's go. One step at a time. I would walk my own path. A path no one had forced me to walk.
行くぞ前原圭一
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think this is the first chapter that, like, that Ketchi's really doing something of, like, out of his own volition. Because with the first chapter, he just wanted to, like, he got curious, wanted to look into stuff, then got, you know, murdered by the director or whatever. Chapter 2, he wanted to, like, find out who was committing all the murders, which was Mion at the time, and he eventually died by Mion. This is the first one that he's truly doing something. Like, this incident obviously was caused by Sadako's uncle coming back, but because of that, no murders have taken place. But Ketchi, who was going to murder Sadako's uncle, which is very interesting. The cicadas made an annoying fuss. Their chorus covered up the suspicious noise of me breaking twigs underfoot. And their chorus filled the path far ahead of me, letting me know I would be alone for some time. The cicadas blessed the path I walked, encouraging me with every last ounce of strength they had. The sky was far above. In not even an hour, the veil of night would draw near and the sky would be tinted with dusk. By that time, the Higurashi would let me hear their chorus in place of the cicadas. When that happened, would everything be over with? Would everything have ended? I said something along those lines when I left Sadako's fate up to a public agency. But this time was different. I would do it. I would carry it out. I would end it. It would all be over very soon. Everything would end. Yes, when the Higurashi cried. Oh. Holy shit. When they cried, dude. What the fuck? For some reason, this is feeling very finale, even though this is chapter 3. Which is very interesting. There was nobody at school. I couldn't hear the playful voices of children. This was the first time I'd seen the school with such a lack of human presence. Still, I quieted my breath and looked around, not wanting to be unprepared. It had gotten darker outside, but it was almost like my eyes could see more clearly now. I made absolutely sure of my safety, then walked to the heavy construction machinery hidden in the metal bat behind. I had a tinge of worry, a premonition that someone had found the bat and hidden somewhere else as a prank. If that happened, would I take that as an opportunity to desist? If it really wasn't there, then the cessation of chilled metal. It was still here where I left it. It hadn't went away. Satoshi hadn't went away. He'd waited here patiently for me.
待たせたな、サトシ。いよいよだが、覚悟はいいか?
Though the metallic touch, Satoshi grins at me in my mind. That's what I should be asking, you know? I did this last year already. You should be more worried about yourself.
上等だぜ、サトシ。目に物を見せてやろうぜ。
Satoshi's bat got wider and wider, and fell into my hands like it was being absorbed. It didn't feel long to swing this. I could move it around so naturally it was like an extension of my own right arm. Of course it felt like that. Satoshi and I were hoarding one bat together. Next I would make the call to lure the man out. It wasn't a bad time for it. My friends were doubtlessly parading halfway through the stalls. I hadn't considered where to make the call from. My house and Sadako's were pretty far apart. If I called from my house, I wouldn't make it. Couldn't I use the school phone? But as I thought, the room was locked up and I couldn't get in. Shit. So naive. Should have at least figured this part out. Couldn't call him. And just for that, was the day all over? I'm sorry, Satoshi. And just as I cursed my own naivete, a miracle occurred. A bicycle came into the schoolyard. It was a familiar middle-aged man. The one from the Forest Service field office. Why? Wasn't today Sunday? Was he here to pick up something he forgot? Anyway, the forest officer went around back and felt around in his pocket, then locked the door and entered. The best possible coincidence, it had to be Satoshi who saved me. The metal bat, food, just my contact with it, told me this was a chance I couldn't allow to slip by. The sections for the forest office and the school were nearly separated. I felt the man head into the forest office's storehouse, which was so far in the back, students wouldn't route into it. The door didn't match its fittings well, so it didn't close all the way. That gap in the door opened slowly as if to wall me in. I took a deep breath and went in. I tiptoed along silently and stealthily and made it into the teacher's lounge. That was the only place with a phone. As I held my breath in the teacher's lounge, I heard the Forest Service officer walking back over. Then the back door clattered shut and was locked. I glanced out the window at the schoolyard and watched as the man got on his bike like nothing had happened and rode out the school gate. The school once again emptied, becoming deathly silent. I waited for a bit to make sure the silence was the real deal, then reached for the telephone on the principal's desk. I fished Sadako's house phone number out of my pocket. Yes, the number in the class directory for Sadako had been the one from their house now, where she lived with her uncle. I touched the dial with my fingers, and then thought for a moment about what to say exactly when he picked up. Despite how many times I'd gone over it in my head last night, now that I have my finger on the dial like this, it started to seep out of my mind like a cracked bucket leaking water. Simple would be best. More importantly, to say it straight, and that sounded suspicious. I counted off 3 heartbeats and spun the dial. The call sound. Would Sadako's uncle pick up? Now of all times, I hoped that he wouldn't pick up, and the feeling of doom and the knowledge that I couldn't save Sadako if he didn't whirled around in a vortex.
もしもし
It was the voice of a grumpy man like he had just woken up. He picked up.
もしもし
Say your name so I know your words are, you asshole. It would be terrible if I got it wrong. I made up my mind. I had all the initiative on my side. Here we go.
こちらは下根市沖宮警察です。北条さんのお宅ですか？
I was changing my voice, but did he really think I sounded like an adult? Would he believe I was the police?
はい北条ですけど
今お宅のお嬢さんの北条聡子さんをこちらで保護しています。
え里子があいつ何かやらかしおりましたか
He fell for it. I could tell by how tense he was that he didn't doubt my words.
詳しい事情はこちらにいらしてからご説明します。すぐにこちらへ来ていただくことはできますか？
今ですか風呂に入っちゃったからあんまし表に出たかないんですがね
What? You don't want to come because you already took a bath?
はい、今すぐです。
すぐぜったく里子のやつ何をしちゃったんですか
詳しい話はこちらでいたします。ではお待ちしていますのでよろしくお願いします。
ああちょっと俺警察署がどこかわかんないんだけどどこよ場所
You moron. What the hell? The Okayama police station? I don't know where it is either. Aren't you from around here? Why don't you know that? Greasy sweat came over my body. Eventually, just as I was about to choke, he spoke.
と消防署の隣でしたっけ遠いな
Thank goodness he remembered it on his own from me. I didn't care where the police station was, so long as he left his house to get there.
ではお待ちしていますので。
俺警察行ったら誰んとこ訪ねればいいんよあんた名前は
On top of that, he wanted to know my name? Just leave your goddamn house already.
前橋と申します。では失礼します。
That was close. I almost thoughtlessly told him my real name. I managed to change the last syllable of it, but put the receiver down like I was wondering why. My fingers were trembling, and I was soaked with a tepid sweat. I wasn't just nervous about the phone call. With that call, everything had finally been put into motion. I left the school. It was locked before, but it was easy enough to open from the inside. But I couldn't lock it again after I left. In terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge and looking for the key. Before we continue on, I just remembered something, and that phone call just reminded me of it. On one of the videos, in the comments, can I not remember the commentator's name? I think it was Josh or something like that. Yeah, I think it was Josh. He described Sadako's uncle as he interpreted, or maybe a lot of people have interpreted, that Sadako's uncle is kind of like the dark mirror of Kechi, with the laziness characteristics of Kechi going to the extreme. And I can absolutely see that. And now with this is very interesting. So we got two Ketchis, let's say. Sadako's uncle, which is the worst of Ketchi, the laziness, the unable to do anything on his own, having others do it for him, versus this Ketchi, who's pretty much doing things on his own, making his own path, planning to murder someone pretty much, but making his own path anyway, which is very interesting, you know? Basically, I guess in a way, you could see this as Ketchi, quite literally, killing this other side of himself, this lazy part, this bumbling idiot that doesn't do anything for himself, has others do things for him. Quite literally just killing that part of himself so he can truly be a free man, so he can truly be an independent person, which is very interesting. It's a very interesting way of looking at this, I have to say. It is very interesting. Let's keep going. But in terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge and looking for the key. I needed to rush back fast as I could and ambush him. I zoomed back to the scene on my bike. If Sadako's uncle got out of town before I got there, everything would be over. He learned that there was no one at the station named Mabashi, and things would get pretty messed up. As I returned at full speed, I passed a family wearing yukutas. They must have been on their way to the festival. Many people in Himizawa knew my face, though I didn't know theirs. Even just passing by them like this made me uneasy. But I didn't generally come around here, so those living in the area might not have known much about me. That all didn't matter right now. I needed to get back as fast as possible to control my breathing and to ambush the man. I hid my bike in a thicket and picked up Satoshi's bat, which I had just left hidden in the shade. And then I held my breath, waiting to see someone. I wondered if he still hadn't gone there. Or maybe he went right out after the phone call and passed by here already. Couldn't figure out which it was and was set upon by indescribable impatience. Calm down, Kechimarubawa. Even if he came here already, he'd pass by here on the way back, right? The end result would be the same. It wouldn't change the fact that he died. He'd probably be coming out on his motorcycle. How would I stop him then? I figured it would be best not to think too hard and just hit him as he passed or beat him out of his seat. The path was made of pebbles. If I hit him as hard as I could and made him lose his balance, he wouldn't be able to help falling. And then, the chorus of the Higurashi stopped. The sound of a bike approaching from far away. I couldn't tell what sort of motorcycle it was from its sound, but I'd seen it parked before, so I'd know. It was getting rapidly closer. It was almost here. If he just went a little farther, he'd cross into that thicket and appear in front of me. I'd take a moment to make sure it was him. Then when I had, I put my plan into action. The motorcycle appeared. A few easily identifiable characteristics told me it was Sadako's uncle's bike, without a doubt. Was it really him? Was it really Sadako's uncle? I wasn't making a mistake, was I? I looked at its characteristics again. His color, shape, and most of all the man's clothes and face. Those last feelings of hesitation, I did away with them. Sadako, now your Nini will end it, okay? Closer, closer. The bike came closer. Let's go. Satoshi. Holy shit. Whoosh! I jumped out of the thicket. I used my shoulder to basically tackle the uncle on the bike with all my might. He gave a dumb shout as his bike completely lost its balance. Finally it fell, the bike scattering clouds of sand, and after spinning it stopped. Her uncle tossed to the ground, didn't understand what had just happened, and groaned for a few moments, crouched on the ground. My breathing started to become ragged. No, I couldn't have this emotion. Some weird secretion crossed through my brain and nearly made me hallucinate. Her uncle was groaning. Now was the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What was I doing? All the sounds in the world cut off. My mental chaos from a moment ago withdrew like a lie, and I could feel the temperature in my head rapidly cooling down. The tension in my muscles all went away like the strings they had been attached to had been cut, when I let my hands dangle at my sides. It wasn't quite like exhaustion. Have you calmed down now, Kachimarabawa? Do you need to remember again why things got to this point today? Scrape. Scrape. I stepped over the pebbled path, taking one side another step, then another towards Sadako's uncle. The more I walked, the more my breathing calmed. The more I walked, the more I felt my body cooling, calm, and chilling with frost. Yes, at this moment, this guy has lost permission to live. I had just re-signed it. So he mustn't stay in this world any longer. If he lived any longer, if Sadako's misfortune continued, it would be my responsibility for having allowed him to live. I could feel the cooling substance going through my whole body, even down to my capillaries. Her uncle was at my feet now, still in the ground like an idiot. I smiled coldly at how ridiculous he looked. That's all it took for it to hurt. Sadako's heart hurt much more, and now you're going to feel that. And with your wife, I'll make up for her pain. I erased all unnecessary information from my mind. I prioritized the murder of this man. Execute, execute, execute. Wham! Utterly calmly, I delivered my first strike to the back of his head. I wanted to get at the most effective spot, at least during the first moment I'd have to attack him while he was at his most defenseless. And if he was hit in the head, he'd cover his head. It was a defensive reaction all human made, like machines. He used both hands to cover his head, so he couldn't pick himself up off the heap he was on in the ground. Like pounding a caterpillar into the dirt, I hit him over and over. If he covered his head, I hit him in the side. If he covered his body, I go for his head. If he rolled over, I strike his feet, his knees, his elbows. I didn't care where anymore. Just by delivering one blow after another, I induced panic in him. I retained my overwhelming advantage, but I hadn't done nearly enough to deliver a fatal wound. Jesus. Her uncle skillfully pulled himself up off the ground and started to run like a fleeing rabbit. It wasn't a judgment he made after seeing my face and decided whether to fight me. Right now he was fleeing by instinct, just trying to escape from the threat that had presented itself. A counterattack from a more physically capable uncle was what I was most concerned about. He may have won, but it wasn't all that unlucky. And the odds were in my favor. The uncle didn't run away towards people, but off the path and into the woods. How pleasant that he would run in a direction when nobody else was. He was fleeing into strange geography like a rat that instinctively runs into tight spots over and over. Yes, he was no longer human. He was a rat. The blood vessels in my legs expanded and my total oxygen supply increased. I lowered myself to gain most explosive velocity I could. Without breathing, I became a wind-like shadow and dashed. Across thickets, crushed dead tree branches underfoot, and dove through the woods like a bullet. He ran so cowardly, arms flaring as he went. After catching up to him, I didn't need so much as a blink of an eye to strike him again. My senses, mind, and body were all sharply purely to kill this man. This was the first time I'd felt like this. Well, this was the first experience I'd ever had killing someone. It felt natural, continuing to do this for the first time. And that meant I had this much talent for killing. Or perhaps the act of killing was so simple that anyone could do it. I didn't struggle or grow tired at all chasing the clumsily fleeing uncle. No matter how much he ran, it was trying to get away from his own shadow. He couldn't get away from me. I could easily aim at his back, shoulder, and his head even from this unnatural stance. Each time I struck him, he wailed in pain and begged pitifully for forgiveness, but it didn't disturb my mind. I was neither excited nor plagued by hesitation like before. I felt sharp. I felt like a carnivore. Of course, so did the uncle, who was trying to run away because he didn't want to die. He didn't want to be eaten, like a herbivore running with all its might trying to get away. Despite all the attacks, despite all the hits, he kept on fleeing without even staggering. And despite the bad footing in the forest, he impressively never tripped over anything. But there was no need to admire that fact. It was simply proof that he was no more than an animal. If he was chased, he would run. If he was going to be killed, he would run. He bared his fangs at the weak, but couldn't oppose the strong whatsoever. He was lowly, vulgar, a diminutive animal. Such a puny little creature had harmed Sadako. Scar after scar to her body and mind, deep wounds that might never go away as long as she lived. Oh. My cold and calm commotion suddenly turned into beastful ones. My personality changed to something specialized for murder, purely to devour the diminutive animal for me. The uncle gave a puny little shriek, covered his head, and ran and ran. I'm impressed by how much he can run. Fine, run as much as you like. I will be your death. I will choose the moment at my leisure. Your legs will hurt, your lungs will feel about to burst, your head will hurt from lack of oxygen. If you feel the pain has become worse than death, then by all means, stop any time. Without turning back, suffocating on his terror of the approaching death, he just ran shamefully onward. He ran but was chased, his head bashed with the metal bat, sweat and drool flying everywhere, blood clinging to him. From his mouth came the sounds of coarse, irregular breathing and high-pitched screaming that verged on crying, and pleas for forgiveness to someone, I don't know who. Each and every second was a second of atonement that I granted him. Now run, and fall and moan and die. Where did you even crawl out of anyway? You were never here before. If you were never here, you never should have showed up. If you never showed up, our lives would be still fun and enjoyable. We would have gone to today's festival, waited for each other, and gone to the shrine laughing. We would have been playing amongst the stalls right about now. We'd be browsing the strange fool stalls you only stall of festivals, trying to get prizes from goldfish scooping, wing throwing, or target practice. Beyond would surely make it into a competition, and we as a club would have a grand time. And everyone would have been cheering for Rika-chan's dedication dance, and everyone would say how fun it was and would give us energy for days to come. Fun, enjoyable, and funny, warm time spent with friends. And that would have happened, but it didn't, and now it was all smashed to pieces. There was no doubt that would be what the world was like if you never showed up. You were the obstacle, the mistake, the heresy in that world, but I would correct that mistake now. I would erase you and make it so this last week never happened. Tonight was the Wanakagashi Festival, the holy night where taking just one wife was permitted in the name of Oshiro-sama's curse. It looked like the Higurashi stopped crying at some point. When the Higurashi cried, everything would end. And the Higurashi silenced. Lowly one, the hour of atonement is in the end. The Higurashi have stopped their crying. Thus, it is the end. The end, the end, the end, end! You don't have to run away anymore. Die with those dirty brains of yours smashed everywhere. Lightning and thunder struck like an explosion. It was so loud it shook the ground and I smelled gunpowder. The response I got this time was clearly different from the one before. The metal bat crunched into the crown of his head. It was like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. It had been the final killing attack that visited him. When I didn't overlook the opening, he left as his knees gave out under him. I remained silent for a few moments, then thud, thud. He planted both knees in the ground, and then fell forwards, burying his head in the ground. I've been holding back my ragged breathing, but now it had all come out of me like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy and white and unable to maintain my balance. I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try and guard his head any longer. After a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood and drew towards him carefully, bat still at a ready. It was possible he was faking it and trying to wait it out. Should I check for a pulse? I realized right away, though, how unnecessary that would be. If I thought he might be faking it, then I would just have to keep pummeling him until I was satisfied. I fought back my ragged breathing again, and then I swung my bat far above and brought it down. Crunk. His body leaped like a bow, but he didn't try and cover his head. Then once again I aimed for his head and swung. His reaction was the same this time. After spending a few moments making his head into mochi, the itch gradually started to feel different, and started to spray a filthy dark red liquid everywhere. That was enough. It was definite now. I had absolutely killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment, nor one of regret. I didn't feel anger towards Sadako's uncle, nor pity towards Sadako herself. Instead, right now, I was feeling like my heart had been stolen by the downpour. It had begun to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. The rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement within me faded as the rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet they made splashing sounds. And despite abusing Sadako's bat like Satoshi's bat like that, it wasn't bent very much. There were a few dents in it, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem different from before. Instead, it had been stained, with black, with red, with mud and blood. But that itself would be evidence. The one piece of evidence needed to prove that my delusions hadn't just been daydreams, and that I ended Sadako's uncle for all eternity. Alright, Ketchy. Calm your mind. The time for passion is over. Now it is time to be cold as ice. I needed to bury the body. But where was I? I simply followed the man as far as he ran into the darkness. Couldn't take a guess as to how far we'd run. It was already pitch black around us, and the only light I had to go on was the very faint lights on the road a little further down. It was so dark out. I didn't notice the darkness until just now. My vision was so good I could see the man's ugly hairline, could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now that I realized how much crazy strength I had mustered at that moment. I went over to the streetlight. I looked up and down the road and desperately trying to figure out where it was.
ここは
Oh no. This was the one road connecting Himizawa to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Sadako's house. Had the two of us really run so far a distance? My surprise at that was accompanied by knowledge of the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we hadn't come across anybody at all. There was a long way between here and the ambush location where I dug the hole. There was no way I could carry the body that far. Wait, aside from that, the bike the man took here was still lying in the middle of that path. That would be an issue. The police could tell whose motorcycle it was by looking at its license plate. And they wouldn't just leave it at that. Thankfully, the corpse was in a dark forest. In terms of urgency, dealing with the bike would come first. And I wanted to get the shovel back from where I left it next to the hole. We should drag the body there. I would have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour and was more sluggery here than where it was before. I might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Of course, my bicycle was still over where I left it too. It still wasn't over. Homicide had only been half my goal. The other half would be just as important as the first. It would completely hide the body, not allowing the beginning to happen. It would erase the man like he had never existed, and regain the peaceful times we had before. I bent my head backwards and calmed my mind even further. The big water droplets struck my brow mercilessly. They were actually quite comfortable, and for a while, I let my desire have its way. Ooh, shit. God damn. Oh. Ooh, shit. What an interesting way to write a murder scene, pretty much. What an interesting way to write jeez. God. Now, I find it very interesting that Kechi thinks that Sadako's uncle is the one to blame for all this. In which, in this instance, in this chapter, yes, he was. But the thing is, no matter what timeline we're in, there's always something that comes up. There's always an incident. There's always an incident. Why? Why is there always an incident in this particular town? Why is it always a murder? Why is that? Why this town specifically? It's a simple backwater Japanese town. There's nothing special about it. Just some weird traditions from the past, but who doesn't have weird traditions from the past? Every country on Earth has it. And every country on Earth has done horrible things, just like Himizawa. So why this town in particular? Why is there always an incident? And why does it always happen to this particular group of students, of kids? Why does it always happen to them? Why must it always be so different, yet so similar? Be that of murder. Maybe we'll find out the answer to that question. Maybe not. Who knows? After confirming that I was sharp again, I started running through the rain. The motorcycle was in the grass at the roadside. Considering how it worked, pelted with rain and covered in mud, it actually seemed like it had been laying there for a very long time. The plan was to drop the motorcycle into the swamp. The swamp was a bit of a walk from here. We lifted the bike up. I didn't think it would be so heavy. I was a little surprised. But once I had it upright, it was fairly easy to roll it along. Still, pushing this thing all the way to the swamp was really not something I wanted to do. I could no longer ignore my exhaustion, and it warned me numerous times of how far away the swamp was. This motorcycle, I wonder if I could ride it well enough. Once I got it going, it would be basically the same as a bicycle. Wouldn't it get me to the swamp quickly? The plan suggested by my exhaustion, the anxiety of getting on a motorcycle for the first time withdrew. I turned the key and then you just kicked this pedal, right? Yeah. Vroom. It's on. Then I gripped the handlebars, first the right, then the left. Maybe I twisted them too much. The bike lurched and did a wheelie like an angry horse. Lost it for a second, but it was just a problem of how much torque to apply. Let's try that again. This time slowly, gently. That time it went well. It was strange to be on a two-wheeled vehicle that would go even if I didn't pedal. Very odd. But I got used to it quickly. Malin once told me that you could get a scooter license within a day, and she was really right. This is pretty easy. I needed to throw the metal bat into the swamp too. But I didn't know how I would pack the bot into a motorcycle. Without much other choice, I stuffed it in the back of my shirt, feeling like a ninja carrying a katana. If I put the tip down, the seat of my pants had lurched over and wouldn't fall out. I got back on the bike and this time got going without any difficulty. Carefully pressed the button labeled white, and rather strong light came on, illuminating the way forward. I probably really shouldn't have turned it on, but I didn't have any way of seeing at this point and had zero confidence if I could ride through this darkness. As the rain came down on me, I maintained a precarious balance and inched my way towards the swamp. Along the way, I ran across a few people who seemed to be returning from the festival, but none of them had any interest in me. They were all either soaked through with the rain and hurrying on their ways home, or had their umbrellas low and their heads down. Yesterday I might have been wary of even these passerbys, but right now it didn't seem to be much for concern. In fact, it would probably be less suspicious to be riding out in the open like this instead of sneaking around. More and more, though, I started to think of that idea as naive, brought on by my exhausted state. I climbed the steep hill. On a bike, the hill would have pulled me out of breath, but I just had to accelerate a little bit to climb the entire thing. Motorcycles sure are convenient. For a moment, its lights illuminated a sign before I passed by it. Omega Fuchi Swamp. Good children do not play around here. Still, it wasn't like the way to the swamp was cordoned off by a metal fence or anything. Parents and teachers would get mad at you if they found out you were playing at the swamp, but some of the bad kids in my class apparently snuck out there sometimes to see the giant crayfish in the place. They talk before about how they go to the candy shop and buy some pickled squid. And then just tie it to a fishing line and throw it, and all the crayfish would come running. Once I got up to the bank, there was a tiny ritual shrine and traditional ropes on one of the trees. And as it swallowed the downpour of horror, the blackened swamp had waited for me. If I slammed on the accelerator from the cliff like stop I was on now, the thing would fly straight into the middle of the swamp. I had to be careful not to fall in with it. If I drowned, it disappeared. Man, what a stupid ghost story that would be. On the night of the long Higurashi, Sadako's uncle's corpse was found in a thicket by the road leading to town, and Ketchimaru went missing. People would whisper that I had been demoned away. The 5th year's curse would be a half-baked one. Sounds a lot like the 4th year curse, huh? I got off the bike and twisted the accelerator as hard as I could. I let go when it just seemed like it would drag me forward. The bike shot off the cliff and was swallowed down into the swamp, leaving a fainter splash than I imagined. Its surface was being pummeled by the downpour, and the muddy, filthy water was flowing into it. I couldn't even make out the motorbike I'd just thrown in there. It was pretty heavy, after all. It would be quickly engulfed by the soft mud at the bottom of the swamp. It would be pulled deeper and deeper until it reached hell itself. I felt no reluctance whatsoever in throwing the man's motorcycle down to the land of the demons. But I did have a tinge of regret about Satoshi's bat. I washed the bat with muddy water, and the gore sticking to it came off easily. I had to sort of share today's events with Satoshi, so I wanted to give it a quiet place to stay. That's how I felt. I started to feel more like returning it to the locker from before so it could continue to keep watch over Sadako.
サトシ、俺、多分お前のこと誤解してた。
Satoshi listened quietly, without nodding. I am absolutely convinced now. You were the one who beat your aunt to death last year and saved Sadako. I always scorned you and called you a coward who ran away, but I was wrong. To the rest of the world, some deviant was behind that incident. But I know. That was something you did for her. And then you disappeared. You finally got back that peace and lost it within days. So I swear to you that I will live life to the fullest from now on. Live it enough for the both of us. I will live on as though this week, this day, never happened. But I will never forget the short time we shared together for as long as I live. I didn't know what expression Satoshi made as he listened, but as someone who had protected the same girl, I felt he had smiled and given me his blessing. And then, my hand moved of its own accord. The bat I had hesitated to throw away left my hands and flew through the air. It traveled its parabolic path, spinning all the while, and the swamp absorbed it without a sound. There weren't even any ripples when it hit the surface. That surface was tempestuous because of the downpour, and the bat was long gone. For a moment I regretted having thrown it, but I realized that might have been what Satoshi had wanted.
そうだよな。俺はまだ感傷に浸る余裕なんかないんだよな。
I would return for my shovel, get on my bike, dig a hole to hide the body, and bury it. It seemed like a simple sequence of events, but I felt extremely exhausted and I had to do it all night. Satoshi left me with only the advice I needed to finish this up soon, then fell silent for eternity and disappeared at the bottom of the demon's abyss. I returned to the path I had ambushed her uncle on. My bike was hidden, sweeping in the bush. I stood back up. My whole body felt heavy, but I needed to finish by the end of the day, even if I had to whip myself to do it. No, I forgot something. I didn't just come here for my bike. The shovel was here too. Not good. I was zoning out. Every once in a while, if I let my guard down, my vision would almost go black. Pull yourself together, Kachimarbara. It's still not over. I went into the grove of trees and looked for the hole in which I had hidden the shovel. Unfortunately, I hadn't hid deep in the forest, not wanting to be seen, but now everything was black in the night, and I couldn't see anything anymore. I reawakened my fading consciousness and realized just how big this annoyance really was.
おい、マジかよ。
The sweat the rain washed away before came back up to my skin. Deep, deep in the forest where the streetlights could never reach. The fact that it would be so pitch black had been completely incalculated. With this much darkness, even if I had been able to kill him right away like I'd planned, I didn't know if I could still bury him without a problem. What should I do? I simply couldn't find a shovel tonight. If I forced myself to go deep into the forest, I lose even my sense of direction and might actually get lost in there. That might have been an exaggeration, but it was fully possible I trip over a tree root and sprain a muscle. Now, right, my house's storage room. There's another shovel there, the same fold-up kind. Couldn't I go back to the house, get the shovel, and give up on finding the shovel tonight? It sounds as though the name Marabao is one on the shovel, but it seemed like an unusual item from an important variety store made in another country, so I didn't want to leave that shovel here. But in this darkness, I couldn't do anything. I should give up and go back to the storage room. And there was an electric lantern in there. If I used that for a ride, I could look for it. But it was so extremely dark, could I light the way with just a lantern? The light of a lantern in this dark night. I couldn't discard the possibility of its drawing eyes. And I doubted if I could find a shovel with the lantern's feeble light. Besides, I left the body there for a pretty long time already. My sense of fear, dulled through excessive exhaustion, finally reared its ugly head. Anyway, for now, the most important thing was to hide the body. A shovel being found wouldn't be a big deal, but a corpse? If they found that, I'd share the same fate as Satoshi. First, I'd go back to the storage room at home, then I'd get the lantern. Now that it's gotten this dark, I might still need light to dig a hole for the body too. Then I'd get the other shovel. And then I deal with the body first thing. Once that was done, I come back here, find a shovel, and bring it back. I had to at least that much, but I'm so tired. But complaining wasn't getting me nowhere. If I started getting complacent now, everything would have been for naught. At some point, I had sat down. I gritted my teeth and endured lifting my heavy hips. The night was young. Of all the nights I experienced, none had been ever this long. When would it all end? The night was young. Night still young? The lights at home were dazzlingly bright. Suddenly, they reminded me of how hungry I was. I checked the clock and saw that it was almost 7. I thought for sure it was 2 or 3 in the morning already. I was surprised how messed up my biological clock had gotten just from this one night. There was a warm light coming from the curtains in the living room window. The worlds between here and what was beyond those curtains were so different. If only that man hadn't shown up, I would have been in that light. I'd still be excited from the festival, and I'd be talking to my parents about how much fun I had with all my friends. And then, even though they made a hot meal for me, I would have eaten right too much at the stalls, barely eaten any of it, and gone back to my room. No doubt I'd crawl into my futon and easily let myself fall asleep. But right now it was completely different. There wasn't a single ember of warmth from those weak streetlights. Right now, I was unconnected to any time spent with my family, and there was neither warm food nor the time to allow myself to sleep. My body exposed to the cold rain, I knew that I simply had to spur myself on to accomplish what I must. I realized how timid, how cowardly I was becoming. For what purpose did I need to kill someone so badly that it was worth feeling this terrible? I lost sight of that purpose. I selected the fastest, most fundamental way of saving Sadako and executed it without hesitation. That man was dead. He was gone. He would never ever hurt Sadako again. We all fought frantically for days on end about Sadako's problem, and finally, with no options, we gave up, and I had solved it in one night. By myself, without anyone's help. Right about now, Sadako would be making dinner for her uncle, despite not knowing when he'd return. She might be spending the night trembling in fear whether he'd yell at her for how it tasted. But her uncle wouldn't come home. She wouldn't have to fear his wrath and let him make her feel sad. I see. I did it. I successfully saved Sadako. All I'd been thinking about for a long time was killing that man, and I'd forgotten the feeling that it was actually all to save her.
そっか
I did something good. That's right. I did something good, didn't I? I felt hot tears coming from my eyes. And that's when I first realized that the exhaustion I'd been feeling was actually guilt. The blade of guilt. For a while now had just been scraping away with its tip, hurting my heart. It hurt so bad I couldn't stand it. It was throbbing painfully. It hurt so much, it was so painful that I cried. I cried tears of joy at saving Sadako. I didn't know why, really, anymore. I just cried. My tears fell and fell. As I stood there for a while, coming to terms with those warm tears, my heart was comforted a little. Alright, Kachimarabawa. That's enough. There's nothing to regret or feel ashamed about. Both my body and mind were thoroughly exhausted, and that was a fact. It was only natural I couldn't feel anything. Even tomorrow, and the day after that, I might not be able to feel anything for a while. But there was one thing that was true. There was the indisputable fact that I had saved Sadako. One day we would surely be rewarded. One day I would be proud of how distressing an enterprise I had undertaken to get Sadako's smile back. And so that I could wait for that day, I had to put the finishing touches on this night. If I left it undone, everything I accomplished today would be for naught. I looked back up at the sky, which didn't look like it would stop raining anytime soon. Then I rubbed my eyes and summoned forth energy from my core again. How long did I plan on spacing out? This isn't the time for daydreaming. Someone could find that corpse this very moment. That pessimistic thought was proof the very natural emotion of fear had returned to me. As I allowed the fear to spur me onwards, I went to look for the other shovel and the lantern inside the storage room. It was fortunate. I remembered what it looked like around the street right as the body was near. With how dark it was quite possible I couldn't have been able to look for it either. I didn't realize that when I left the place, if the idea of memorizing the spot hadn't even crossed my mind. And that's why I had to call it fortunate that I managed to get back to the body like this. The corpse was now located in a big, muddy puddle. Half the thing had already sunk into a swamp-like pool of water. I only realized afterward, but there was an unusual irrigation channel right nearby, clogged with fallen leaves and dirt. There was rainwater flowing in from there. My shoes had been awash with water for a long time now, so without any hesitation, I stepped into the puddle. Luckily, the whole muddy stream washed it all away. I couldn't leave any slight traces like bloodstains. The rain was like a blessing from heaven. I checked around me, paying very close attention, then turned off the lantern. It became pitch black, but my eyes got used to the darkness in a few moments. And once I managed to reach the street light on the other side, I was able to make out even faint lights. I stuck the shovel into the puddle right next to the corpse. The ground was even looser here than I thought. The shovel's tip easily slid inside it. I had to hurry and dig. If I took too much time, I might lose my energy and strength again. It felt almost like digging a hole in the sand at the beach. It was easy to dig, but no matter what, the muddy water kept flowing and covering the hole. The digging wasn't going as well as I hoped. I dug, and the water would go in, so I couldn't get a sense of how deep it was. The only way for me to measure it was to bury my own foot in the mud. I'm digging just fine. It's alright, don't be disheartened. Dig, dig, dig. Occasionally a car would come by on the road and I hurried to hide myself in the trees. Everyone was only passing through. They wouldn't have their eyes peeled in this kind of darkness. I understood it logically, but I still couldn't help but hide. What was I really scared of? It wasn't quite that one of the cars would coincidentally happen to witness me here. It was that the distance I could spot cars from was getting gradually shorter. At first I noticed the splashing sounds from really far away as cars drove through them. I started noticing them less and less, and with the car that just passed by, I didn't notice it until its headlights were upon me. I felt my senses growing duller by the second. If someone were to take a peek in secret, as I was burying the body at the worst possible time, maybe I wouldn't even notice. The moment I thought that, I took a good look all around me. I rose all my half-asleep senses and searched for signs of presence nearby. What if I found out someone was spying on me from trees? A carnivorous feeling snorted at me, glaring. If there was, then I would dig another hole. I'd come this far already. In order to achieve perfection, I didn't care how much more I had to pay. I didn't know what kind of face I was making at the time, but it was definitely a favorably glaring one. My five senses reached the conclusion that nobody was present. I didn't breathe a sigh of relief. How long had I been digging this mud out of here? It was deep enough for it to go up to my knees. Maybe this was enough. Maybe I'd throw the corpse in as a test. I swallowed, getting my breathing under control. Despite how much I'd beaten him, I was afraid of touching the corpse. So instead I dragged it by the feet to the hole. It took more than a waggle and a tug to do it. But of course it did, considering this man's weight was easily 80 kilograms. I rallied all my strength and dragged him. At this point, my groundless fears that he might suddenly start moving again had vanished long ago. His body fit perfectly the muddy hole. It was more than deep enough. Alright, let's bury him. Quickly, quickly, quickly. If I did a perfect job of burying here, everything would be over. I would hide it in the hole, and none of this would have ever happened. When I realized I only had a little farther to go to finish everything, I was racked with pointless anxiety, like I was at a waste of its time. It was like I was absorbed in the delusion that if I didn't bury the body quickly, it might come back to life. In any case, in a great rush, I poured mud and dirt into the hole. It didn't work efficiently, someone might find me here. Till now, I figured if someone saw, I'd just kill him, but not anymore. I was arrested with such absolute fear that if someone saw me, it would all be over. As I finished the work off, it was a total mess. Swish, splash, squish, scratch. I drew the surface of the shovel across the ground, trying to make it flat. It was completely covered in mud at that point. The rain washed the mud off my body, but not off my now blackened clothing. My body and mind were caked with panic, with fear, with rain and sweat and mud. My shoulders heaving, I threw down the shovel and sat down in the mud. I was so exhausted that I wanted to lie down right here and sleep. It was over. This time, for real, it was over. The man was now in the bottom of the wet dirt. Right this moment, there were traces that this place had been dug up, but the rain and forward muddy water would completely cover it all within moments. Yes, it was over.
やったぞクソったれ
And then I fell over backwards, face up in the mud. Raindrops fell to my face without mercy, but I didn't care. After staying there for a while, resting my mind, I got up again. It was over. So let's go home. You already buried the whole thing, so now it's like it never happened. It never happened, so there's no reason for me to stay out here and get rained on. I wobbled to my feet. I wouldn't use the shovel anymore. I considered disassembling it, but I didn't have the strength in my absolute exhaustion. I didn't really need to take it apart anyway. Dragging the shovel behind me, I headed towards the white. I set up my bike. It had been raining in the grass by the road. I didn't know how I was going to get the still assembled shovel into the front basket. I put the shovel down the back of my shirt like I had done with the baseball bat. Unlike the bat, the corner of it was on my back, making it very painful. Plus, if I relaxed my posture even a little, it would fall out behind me. I ended up having to carry the shovel in my left hand and ride my bike using only my right hand. Not only was I in a state of total exhaustion, this was a downpour. One hand on the handlebars, I was swaying to and fro like a drunk. But I didn't care. Even swinging like this, I got a little closer to home every time I pedaled. I saw two lights swaying slowly in front of me. A car was approaching. Oh no, I need to get out of the way. From far away in the shadow of the darkness, a car appeared. Its dazzling lights washed over me. The driver made a hork of the horn to inform me I was in the middle of the road. I had to get out of the way. I kept telling myself that, but not only was I riding one-handed, I was exhausted, so I couldn't do anything. Wobble, 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 wobble. I meandered about, not going to the right or to the left. The driver decided to swerve out of the way right in front of me, and without lowering the speed much, steadily came towards me. Its outline grew larger than my vision, and telling myself again that I really need to get out of the way, I jerked the handlebars in one direction, then lost my balance and fell over, bike and all. My whole body splayed out and one foot got caught in the bike. This was seriously bad. My drowsiness quickly vanished, and just as cold sweat broke out on my skin, driver recklessly spun the wheel to the left, made a counterclockwise U-turn, and came up right to me and stopped. Driver's seat door opened and the driver came out. You idiot! What are you doing here? I was pretty sure someone would yell at me like that.
あらあら
Oh shit.
誰かと思えば
It was a woman's voice and one I knew. I lifted my face off the ground and looked at her.
高野さん
こんばんは月の綺麗な夜ね前原くん
It was raining far too hard to see the moon. Techno-san unfolded an umbrella and smiled as she spoke. That smile was, for some reason, uncanny, like she's saying, "Why prove me?" Out of all the people I could have met, I got the sudden feeling that this was the one I wanted to see the least.
こんな時間にどうしたのかしら傘もささずに全身ずぶ濡れの泥まみれでそれは何シャベル
She had come here by car. She wouldn't have known what I was just doing, and yet she smiled as though she knew everything. Calm down, Kachimuraboa. She always makes that mysterious-looking smile, remember? Don't let her onto anything. Let you dig your own grave.
噂じゃあなたゴルフクラブで野球に参加したそうだけど、そのシャベルもつまりはそういうこと？傘の代わりってわけかしら？
I should tell a good lie here. If I could just do that, things would work out.
レナと宝探しにダム現場に行った時にこれを忘れてきちゃったんですよ。
ふーん、それをこの土砂降りの中取りに行ったわけ？
家を出た時は降るとは思いませんでしたので。
あら、降り出したのは結構前よ。あなたずいぶん前から表にいるのね。
まあほっつき歩いてましたから。
それにしたってあなた向こうからこっちに向かってきたんでしょ。ダムとは場所も方向も正反対よ。
Takano-san was clearly aware that something exceedingly abnormal was happening with me. And as she played her little word game, she was enjoying driving me into a corner. Maybe she had a vague guess, just from the situation of what I'd been doing. My timing really sucked to run into her of all people, of all the times. At the very end, I could only be frustrated at my terrible luck. I swear to God, if we kill fucking Takano, dude, if we... No. Wait, are we gonna do... maybe. I don't know. Oh, shit. At the very end, I could only be frustrated at my terrible luck. I'd done so much, and the end was literally right around the corner. So why at the very, very end did I run into her of all people? What do you do, Kachimarabawa? You're still holding something that could be a dangerous weapon. Will you silence Takano-san? Even if it would be simple to kill Takano-san, dealing with the car she'd come in afterward would be an issue. I couldn't drive a car. It was completely different from a motorbike. But even if the car was here, as long as there was no proof I killed her... Yes, in tonight's downpour, without any proper planning, all by coincidence a hidden one. As long as I didn't drop any handkerchiefs with my initials on them, they would never know I killed her. A black flame quietly smothered and raged in the core of my body.
怖い顔いじめすぎちゃったかしら。
Takano-san started to laugh by herself, and thankfully stopped talking about it. The dark clouds in my mind didn't go away.
それはそうと、いつまで自転車にまたがったまま地面に這いつくばってるつもり？そろそろどいてくれるかしら。
If I moved, she would leave. So I tried to get the bicycle up and out of the way, but then twisted my ankle and then it fell over. There was a sharp pain in the ankle I twisted. This is nonsense. Sprained ankle now?
あら、大丈夫？ひょっとしてひねっちゃった？
Takano-san squats down and takes a good look at the ankle I kept rubbing. She compares it to my facial expression, apparently trying to gauge how bad the wound was.
立てる？
I didn't expect to, but I couldn't even stand up. It was all I could do to shamelessly wiggle on the ground like a caterpillar. Takano-san looked at her watch, then at her car, and after thinking for a moment, opened the passenger seat door, and then gave me her shoulder to stand up with.
家まで送るわ。なんだか私が跳ねたみたいで嫌な気持ちだけどね。
すみません。
見捨てるのも気の毒だし。 私が優しい人でよかったわね。
Nobody good has ever called themselves a nice person, but that would have been a terrible thing to say to someone holding me up like this. I took Takano's hands and sat down in the passenger seat. Takano-san went around the back and looked at my bike on the ground.
自転車は後日ってことにはならない？
I could clearly tell from her face that she thought it would be a pain since it would be heavy and would get her car dirty. But my bike has the name our borrower written on it. Couldn't leave it out here like this.
そのなんとか車に詰めませんか？ないと困るんで。
トランクはもういっぱいなの。
With a dead body. Imagine.
後部座席なんかに積んだらシートが泥で汚れちゃうわ。
Yeah, two murderers coming across each other like, ah shit, ah shit, ah shit, she knows I killed him. Ah crap, I think he knows I killed him.
ま
That'll be fine.
あ、あなたを乗せた時点でもう十分に汚れてるんだけれども。
I turned back to the back seat and seen someone's folding bicycle there already. It still looked big enough to fit my bike in there as well. My expression reflected my thoughts, and the exact thoughts seemed to get through to her.
わかったわわかったわ。積んであげる。今夜だけはお姉さんも優しくしてあげるわ。
Takano-san continued with her mean jokes, but she hoisted my bike and loaded it into the back seat for me. The mean jokes were one thing, but couldn't she do something about that eerie smile of hers? And even more importantly than the bike, I didn't want to leave the shovel here. The shovel could be directly connected to the very body into me.
ついでで申し訳ないんですけど、シャベルもお願いしていいですか？
Takano-san gave me a clearly dubious expression.
シャベル？別にいいけど大事なもの？
The more I talk, the worse it gets for me. That's how I felt, so I didn't force myself to answer her. Eventually, outlasted by my silence, Takano-san gave a short shrug and sighed.
はいはいわかったわ。僕はシャベルがないと困っちゃうんでしょ。そんな怖い目しなくてもいいわよ。
Takano-san brought over the shovel that was lying in the middle of the road. I crushed it like I'd never let go of it again. Takano-san watched me with a puzzled look.
じゃ行くわよ。前原くんのお家ってあの前原屋敷でいいんでしょ。
なんでみんなうちのことを前原屋敷って呼ぶんですか？
It's a pretty big house, man.
だって現にお屋敷じゃない。お金持ちが羨ましい
As she spoke, Takano-san pulled the handbrake and stepped on the gas. After making a skillful U-turn using the shoulder of the road, she stealthily increased in speed. In the rear view mirror, that accursed place seemed to melt into the darkness.
わ。慣れた？
Shit.
すみません。よく聞こえませんでした。今なんて？
Takano-san suddenly tried to say something to me, but thought it was weird and didn't catch it. Looking ahead, Takano-san said the same thing one more time.
したい。
What?
上手に埋められた？
I thought my heart might just beat out my chest, but I didn't let it swell. But my lungs were squeezed tight and I couldn't breathe.
何を言ってるんですか？
こういう山奥に死体を埋めるときはね、結構深く掘らないと野犬とかが匂いを嗅ぎつけて掘り返しちゃうことも多いのよ。野犬が加えてた人骨で事件が発覚。警察一帯を山狩りへなんて 結構ないことじゃないのよ。
Does she know, or is she just fucking with us? Does she know, or is she fucking with us? She can't know. Can she? Motherfuck. God damn it, Takano. Pound, pound, quang, quang. Huge rusted bells started ringing in my head. Had I buried it so deep that I could say it absolutely wouldn't be found? The answer was no. I was in such a rush to bury him and get it over with that I couldn't deny having possibly buried it too close to the surface. No, wait, that's not... Wait, anyway. This woman, how does she know? She had just passed by here in the car by coincidence. And we ran into each other by coincidence. If she had been watching the entire thing from the trees, and once I left, she came back in her car? It didn't make logical sense. So then why... Kichimarabella, that's it. You need to kill her. My entire body reawakened, and I could feel my pupils dilate. I couldn't possibly beat her to death with a shovel in such a small car. Then I would use my hands and strangle her. But she was driving right now. If I strangled her, we might get into an accident. Then suddenly Takano-san turned and looked at me.
ボケもツッコミもなし。
For a moment I was surprised. What was she talking about?
私たちあんまり相性は良くないみたいね。
Takano-san said, disappointed, returning her gaze ahead. I repeated the word she said a few times in my head, and finally realized she meant it as an off-color joke. I didn't know whether it was really a joke, but I wouldn't be able to fool her, no matter how many lies I told. Right now, with her driving the car like this, I couldn't kill her. I would have an even harder time doing it when we got back to my house. The moment we met, that had been my best chance. And to have missed it so easily, it hurt. After that, Takano-san didn't say a single word. The car was completely buried in almost suffocating silence. What kind of woman had I run into? With everything that happened today, I managed to pull it off. At the very end of it all, I just had to go home and go back to sleep. What bad luck. As my sleepiness gradually overtook me, the anxiety I felt steadily started to matter less and less. Is this our way, Ketchumarbala? You probably should not leave this woman alive. Right now, I'm tired. She stepped on the brakes and I jerked against my seatbelt. It woke me up. I thought I must have fallen asleep by accident. I looked out the window and there was a big building with faint lights on. It was really dark out, but I knew immediately it was my house.
今ご家族を呼んでくるわね。少しの間だけど一人でお留守番できるかしら。
バカにしないでください。それにほら、もう大丈夫です。一人で歩けますから。
あらあら、さっきは痛そうな顔して肩まで借りたのに。ひょっとしてお姉さんに甘えてみたかったから。
As Takano-san spoke, she left the car and opened up her umbrella. The sound of falling raindrops were fierce, as always. I carefully reached down and rubbed the ankle I twisted. There was still some pain and weirdness, but they weren't that bad anymore. Rather than being happy about how light the wound was, I first regretted this whole thing. If I hadn't twisted my ankle, I could have still taken the option of killing Takano-san right then and there. There probably wasn't much doubt that Takano-san was convinced I was involved in some sort of crime. If she knew about everything happening in Sadako, then she might have even guessed I killed somebody. Quick. Takano-san opened the passenger side door for me.
本当に肩は必要ないかしら。もう一回だけ甘えてもいいのよ。
I ignored her and answered by getting out of the car by myself. The rain was still pretty intense. I got my bicycle out of the back seat. I was a bit curious who the other bike belonged to, but that didn't matter right now. I let Takano-san hold the umbrella over me, then pushed my bicycle up to the front door.
ありがとうございます。もうここまでで大丈夫です。
My ankle hurt so much earlier, but it still did, but it aggravated me that it hadn't even been that bad. It was really seriously terrible luck.
じゃあ私はこれで失礼するわね。前原くんと二人きりで夜のドライブだったなんて特に二郎さんにはね。
Jiro-san? Oh, she meant Tomoki-san. I suppose she calls him by his first name. His full name must be Joru Tomoki-san. And then the other bike, the folding one in the back scene that I didn't care about at first, only came to mind. Hey, excuse me, you're from Himizawa, right? On the day before yesterday, as I walked near the dam, half asleep, Tomoki-san had talked to me. The bicycle he'd been riding, it was...
あの後ろに積んであった自転車、富武さんのですよね。
Takano-san's eyes, I think they sharpened for a moment.
どうしてそう思うのかしら。
以前に会った時見てますから。フレームも特徴的でしたし。
ふーん。でもおかしくないかしら。この自転車が二郎さんのものだなんてことありえると思う？
おかしいって。
Takano-san, her hair elegantly fluttering, pierced into my eyes.
だってひなみ沢には民宿なんてないのよ。なら二郎さんは町に泊まっていることになるわよね。
そうなんですか？まあ、そうならそうなんじゃないですか？
町からひなみ沢まではとても歩いてなんか行き来できないわよね。バスだって走ってないし、せめて自転車くらいはなきゃね。
She didn't need to tell me that. That's why Jiro-san was riding a bike.
その二郎さんの自転車が私の車に積んであって、二郎さんは私の車に乗っていないならおかしいじゃない。二郎さんはひなみ沢で自転車なしってことになっちゃうわよ。二郎さんを放っておいて自転車だけが私の車に積んであるなんてね。
Wait a fucking minute. No fucking way. No fucking way. Oh my god, no fucking way. In the first chapter, we learned of Tomoki-san's death, how he whipped out his own throat, and how it was attributed to a syringe that let him call his own throat. And we also saw that syringe again in the first chapter as well, from Mion and Luna. Who would have access to medicine? Who would have access to drugs like that? A fucking nurse. No fucking way. What? No fucking way. What the fuck? Why did I... Why have I never considered that before? But the reason why I didn't consider it before was because Takano was always murdered along with Tomiki, so it would make sense.
ありえないでしょ。
As she spoke, Takano-san made eyes like a hawk. Fortunately, I didn't really understand what was so odd.
それの何がおかしいんですか？高野さんは富武さんとは仲がいいんですよね。何かのようで自転車を積んであげたって別におかしいことだとは思わないですけれど。
そうじゃないでしょ。つまりこのひなみ沢において二郎さんとその自転車がバラバラに存在することはありえないということなのよ。
The body they found Jiro-san was like on a dirt path, like on a back path. They never saw any sign of a bicycle, if I remember correctly. So why would Tomiki be in the middle of like the back lots of like the back path of the village without his bicycle? Because Takano took this night on the night of the Higurashi.
以上の理由からこの自転車が二郎さんのものであるわけがない。理解できたかしら？
Takano-san's roundabout way of talking was so hard to comprehend, but that eeriness I could feel, that vague dreadfulness, I didn't like it at all. But the most wild, instinctive part of me warned me not to pry.
あれは私の自転車なのよ。二郎さんに選んでもらったからセンスが似てるのは間違いないけれどね。
If the next chapter starts off with Tomoki's dead, I'm fucking blaming Takano.
あ、そうだったんですか。
Unless she's murdered tonight as well. But that's the problem. If Takano killed Tomoki-san, then why would they murder Takano then?
どうりで似てるとは。
私とあなたは今夜出会わなかった。
And now she was talking about something completely different.
何を言ってるんですか？
私とあなたは今夜出会わなかった。
I stayed there, not knowing what to say, and Takano-san repeated her eerie, cynical, cinquet phrase to me again.
私とあなたは今夜出会わなかった。私とあなたは出会わなかった。
Something cold and present crawled up my spine. I knew because I killed a person with my own hands before. Before I came to the conclusion that I only had one chance to beat this woman to death to keep her quiet. Couldn't hesitate till I could tell that she arrived at the very same conclusion. My instincts warned me again. I wish I'd never met this woman. The faint sense like a rotten smell drifting from this woman was without doubt the exact same sense that was giving off right now. The very peculiar aspiration, the lack of uncertainty at taking the human's life for a purpose, one that only those who have risen above everything had. Actually, maybe I should call it nausea. It meant, and I didn't know how to explain this very well, but Takano-san was the same as me. In other words, somebody who shouldn't have been here. Someone I couldn't have let anybody know was here. Someone who nobody would have wanted to see. And now that we had, we could calmly pretend as though we never met. Yes. Which meant that just like I wanted to have nothing else to do with her, she didn't want anything to do with me either. And she too wanted to make it so that we never met. Both of us wished for the same thing. Our desires were the same, which meant Takano-san's suggestion was extremely practical. And that I could not outright refuse.
それでいいならそういうことでもいいです。 俺と高野さんは今夜出会わなかった。
そうよね。あなたにとってもその方がいいでしょうから。
どうしてそう思うんですか？
いちいちうるさいわね。それくらい自分で考えられないの、坊や。
She cut me off with a condescending word, boy, right in front of my house in a place most unsuited to killing. And yet there's this frozen thirst for blood coming from both of us. I would be killed right here, right now. Yeah, and I should have definitely beaten her as we passed each other. A damp, greasy sweat broke out on my body. That's fine. If you want me, then you can come any time. And when I made up my mind, she shook her hair arrogantly and turned on the heel.
よかったわね。私が優しい人で。
What was good? How? Because she was a kind person? Was that it? I didn't get it. Takano-san got into her car. We didn't exchange any words of parting. I had performed a massive feat, the killing of Sadako's uncle, and yet I didn't feel any accomplishment. On the hoary night of Oshiro-sama's curse, on which the taking of another's wife was allowed. On the terribly rainy night when the demons wandered as agents of Oshiro-sama's will. The demons were never supposed to meet, but suddenly, they did. The demons parted ways triumphantly. There was no reason for them to fight. Both their objectives had already been accomplished. With the rain hitting me like a waterfall, my eyes met with Takano-san's through the car window. The female demon, her mouth twisted into a distorted, fearless smile. It was too late to kill her. Far too late. That first moment, the very first moment we saw each other, had been my best chance. And now that we had parted like this, I was acutely aware of it. I should not have let her live. She beeped her horn quickly. Then her car drove away into the deluge. The one woman who knew what really happened tonight disappeared into the dark. As long as she was alive, this night would never really end. Just get into an accident, I thought to myself. This downpour, slip on some mud or something, fly face first into a tree and die. That wasn't a delusion, a wild flight of fantasy. It was an earnest wish. Yes, it was a command. Die, die, and keep your mouth shut for eternity. Because I have no doubt you're wishing for me to die all the same. My curse upon her faded emptily as Takano-san's tail lights disappeared into utter darkness. Her car's lights were completely out of sight now. Even the sound of the engine faded into the sound of the heavy rain. It was inaudible now. I too turned on my heel to draw the curtains on this insane night, to open my front door and end it all. I began walking towards the front door. I was covered in mud, and I made a squishing sound with every step I took. Squish, squish. Don't worry, catch Marabella. Squish, squish. She'll die. Squish, squish. Her end will be as miserable as she is. I'll throw her into some flames alive and let her dance until she's burned to a crisp. I'll burn her to ashes in the fires of hell itself until she's roasted as much as she deserves.
そう願うぜ。本気でな。
Squish. Huh. Just now, I hadn't taken a step. And yet, a footstep. Without emotion, I turned around. If there was a footprint that wasn't my own, then it was obvious someone else was behind me. Was somebody else there? I was sick of this. Whoever it was, I was sick of everything tonight. This time I would kill them. I'd kill them without a second thought. I wouldn't hesitate to turn around and dig another hole. But, fortunately, There was nobody there. I wasn't going to have to kill any more people tonight. This night, I couldn't handle any more of it. Even if I heard an extra footstep each time I stopped, I'd put it down to me just being tired. Holy shit. What a chapter. Holy shit. What a chapter. Two people that were never meant to meet on that night met. Two demons. Two demons met on that night. Shit, that was good. Shit, this chapter is so good. Just so fucking good. This game is just great. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this kind of content, hit that subscribe button. If you liked it, hit the like button. Want to tell me something? Put it down in the comments below. Want to check out the Discord server I hang out in or my Twitter? Check the description below. And yeah, it's been Voidlego. I'll see you guys next time. See ya!